This podcast is powered by Feinberg Consulting and Intervention, Case Management, Coaching, and Companion Service. Hi, everyone. Welcome to Resilient Butterfly. I'm Pam Feinberg-Rivkin, founder of Feinberg Consulting. We do intervention, case management, coaching, and companion services for people with mental health and addiction in complex medical situations. I am really excited. This is Valentine's Day, even though it's going to be aired at another date. We are recording on Valentine's Day, and I have to say it's my birthday. So with that, I just want to... Whoa, that shocked me. With that, I am going to say it really hit me this morning that Valentine's Day has never been a romantic holiday for me. It's more about self-love holiday. So I want to put that message out there for everyone who may or may not be in a romantic relationship that let's do some self-love today for everyone. And I have amazing guests here, Nikki Tartell and her mother, Sharon Dietrich, who have such a story, and this is a story of love, and I'm going to cry because when I saw this story, I'm like, whoa, this is really a testament of a mother's love and a daughter's willingness to let go of the control and be able to get help from professionals. So Nikki and Sharon, I don't even know where to begin because I don't know. It's such a story, but let me start back. And I understand you started with alcohol at the age of 13, correct?
Yeah, I would say probably like middle school age. Yeah, going into high school.
And what happened between then and the time that you started with heroin?
I mean, at the time, what I would say is that, I was drinking socially. I was excelling in school. I did very well in school. I got a full scholarship to a fantastic college. Now that I've been in sobriety for some time, in hindsight, what I would say is that, like, I was definitely drinking problematically already at that age. Mm-hmm. So really when I went away to college and was, like, introduced to other drugs, I think that had already kind of taken a hold of me just in the way that I was drinking as an adolescent.
Sure. And what college did you go to?
Originally, I went to Wake Forest. That's where I went right after high school.
Okay.
Yeah.
And you were going to, what was your career going to be at that time?
So at that time, I was a math major.
Oh, wow.
I wanted to be an actuary. I like numbers. I still like numbers. I wound up doing a complete 180 on my career path, but I was going to school for math.
Wow, that's interesting.
Yeah.
So how soon after you started college did your addiction increase and where did that go from?
So when I was away at college, it was still just alcohol at that point, but it was pretty instantaneous. I only was there for one semester. And, I think that, I started to feel the side effects of not necessarily like the physical component of alcoholism, but like what I refer to now as like this internal. I was super depressed. I did not like the school I was at. I think I was having a lot of remorse about whether or not I had made the right choice to be at that school. Drinking was kind of like my only relief from that. And eventually I decided that I didn't want to be at that school anymore. Mm-hmm. And I withdrew and left my classes about a week or two into the second semester.
Oh, wow. And then where did you go?
Back home.
Okay.
Yeah.
And how did your heroin addiction start?
I was still drinking really heavily. I started using some other drugs. At first I think pills and cocaine. And then it was just kind of, I was at a phase where I would, every night after work, I would go out drinking. I would go out partying with my friends. So whatever was offered to me, I would accept.
Okay.
Yeah.
And I understand that you had a boyfriend or fiance at the time in your hometown. At what stage was that? And did that lead to the heroin addiction or?
So I had a boyfriend who I found out was also using heroin. I mean, I am very firmly against it. I don't believe that another person caused my addiction or alcoholism, for sure. I mean, it was like a perfect storm of events that he was using heroin, and I was but normal healthy people don't just take heroin from somebody at a party. Like, nobody walks up and is just like, hey, I have some heroin. And so even though it was offered to me, I think that I was already going down that path with other substances. I think that once heroin was introduced to me when I was 18, 19, whatever age I was around that time, it just accelerated that path a lot more rapidly than it would have.
Heroin does.
Exactly.
I don't know that people socially are doing heroin.
and that's like a joke that I made, is like all the time I was just like, I just want to learn how to control and enjoy my heroin use and use socially. And like, that's not like a real thing. Nobody, like, you can't do that. And there's a part of me that's like very grateful for that, because, I think it did, I spent a lot of time in active addiction. Don't get me wrong. I mean, I was using heroin for almost a decade before I got sober. And with the way things are now, that's a long time. And had I not been introduced to heroin, I mean, there's people who struggle with their alcoholism and addiction for decades before they get sober. So it did at least bring me to my knees a lot faster.
Sure. And I've heard that many times.
Yeah.
That, alcoholism and bringing up alcoholism, your father died of alcoholism, right?
Yes.
At what age were you when this happened?
I was 17.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
So what did that play into your addiction?
I think that at the time, my father didn't raise me, so I didn't like have this overwhelming like connection or feeling of loss when he passed away. When I was on the Dr. Phil show, actually, there's like a very distinct moment that always stands out to me where he's like, is this because your father died? Is that what happened? And I'm just like, well, no, I mean, I definitely believe in the theory that there's like genetics play a role in this, and like that's an unavoidable thing, and it's never something that was hidden from me that my father struggled with alcoholism. I mean, I saw that. I just think I was, young, and I was in high school, and I thought that I was invincible, and there's no way I'm going to end up like him.
There's so many times that is the case. And invincible is one of the, thought processes of many people who are really taking drugs and alcohol for a period of time. You talk about Dr. Phil, and this is why I brought your mom. Because
she loves talking about Dr. Phil.
Because your mom, Sharon, wait a minute, I'm going to step back. You left New Jersey and came to Florida, right?
So I did that I did a lot of back and forth between Florida and New Jersey over the next decade or so. Okay,
and your mom didn't have any touch with you for a period of time, right?
Correct, yeah. I mean, that was my MO, whether I was using in New Jersey or Florida. I mean, I like disappear usually. That's what I do.
Nikki was very considerate of us when she used heroin. That sounds weird, but honestly, right, Nick, if she disappeared, that was why. Yeah. Like, he never wanted us to see her. Like, a lot of, I think, addicts like stay close to their family, but she didn't want any of us to see her that way.
Yeah. Well,
so
a lot of addicts isolate, ones especially with heroin. It's an isolated drug.
She wanted to just be alone, and like she said before.
So, Sharon, what period of time? What was going through your head, and what were you doing during this period of time and back and forth and not seeing her. I can only imagine, because I'm a mom, what was going through your mind, but tell us.
Well, like that last time that I hadn't had contact with her, but before I wrote to the Dr. Phil show, it was a year.
Oh, wow.
It was a full year.
Did you even know that Nikki was alive during that period of
No.
time? Wow, it's scary. So
I didn't.
So
No.
you wrote to Dr. Phil. How long after you wrote to him and told him the story did they get back to you?
An hour.
Oh, wow. So that was a pretty powerful story that they took on.
I didn't write him no novel or anything.
Mm-hmm.
I did not want to do that. No one in my family knew Nikki used heroin. And she's
really?
telling you she had been going for 10 years.
Wow.
That's how good I was at protecting her.
Sure.
So I was very, 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 very desperate.
Sure.
And I was watching Dr. Phil like I did every single day. And at the end, they always say, is there something that you want Dr. Phil to help you with? Well, text Phil.
Mm-hmm.
So I texted in maybe 20 words maximum. It was, first of all, I thought I was just kind of maybe venting by texting this. I never thought I was going to get a call or nothing, but I think I said something to the effect that Dr. Phil, please help me. I need your help. I don't know if my daughter's dead or alive.
Mm-hmm.
And basically that was it. It was a very short little text I sent.
So how did they find you, Nikki?
So I still had access to a cell phone. I had like a prepaid cell phone I was using. And, I would steer clear of social media because I didn't, like I said, when I disappear, I disappear. I leave my house, I go out on the street and I disappear. And for some reason, I decided to log into my Facebook account on that phone. And it had not been hours since a producer from the Dr. Phil show had sent me a message that day, like hours earlier. And I was like, well, this is, their picture is like Dr. Phil.
I've got chills.
So they had messaged me on Facebook and I was, sitting there and I was like, well, I don't really have much to lose. So like, why don't I message this producer back? I think his name was Justin. I still message him here and there and just thank him. Justin, right? It was just, I still shoot him a message like every once in a while and just thank him. And I messaged this guy back and was like, hi, yes, I got your message. I'm in Florida. And they immediately were like, okay, like where in Florida? How do we get to you? How do we send a camera crew out to meet you?
Wow. So did that camera crew actually film you with your fiance holding you up when you were really in a situation?
So my daughter's father, yes. So they followed me around for I want to say like three or 4 days maybe. And I was living on the streets. I had broken into an apartment that was vacant, and that's like where I was crashing at the time. So they saw everything. There is footage of me, using. There's footage of me overdosing on camera. They got all of that.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. And I have to tell the audience now, you were pregnant at the time.
Yeah.
When did you find out, Sharon, that she was pregnant?
Well, I got a phone call from her boyfriend at the time. Mm-hmm. He told me that Nikki had been arrested and that she found out she was pregnant because they tested her, pregnancy test. And that was when I found out. And that was when I knew she was, I had heard, I wasn't sure she was pregnant because I hadn't heard from her.
Right.
He was telling me this. So when I messaged the Dr. Phil show, I had put in there that I have reason to believe she's pregnant.
Oh, got it. Okay.
Okay. And that was all I knew at that time, was that he was telling me. I didn't know what was true or not true because I hadn't talked to her in a year.
Wow. So how far along were you?
So when I found out, when I was arrested, because they pregnancy test you pretty much as soon as you go into the jail when they process you in, I was probably like 6 months pregnant. And when I did the Dr. Phil show, I was 8 months pregnant at that point. I was like 32 weeks, I think.
Wow.
Yeah.
And the Dr. Phil show, anybody can watch that and see. Really, Nikki, you're beautiful, you're blossoming, and I have to say, you can't see her, but she is going to be delivering her third baby in just a few weeks, a couple weeks,
like 2 weeks. Thank goodness.
And you are just, you're just so beautiful and blossoming, and you were so sick at the time that just to show people that it doesn't matter how bad someone is, there is still hope and there is still opportunity to get them well.
Absolutely. I mean, when I go speak places, it's a very unique hook that I have to make a joke about being on the Dr. Phil show.
Yeah.
But I'll tell clients, I think sometimes, like you said, it's hard. I know it was hard for me, like when I would be in treatment and I would see these speakers come in and, I come in with car keys. I have a cell phone. Like I would look at speakers and be like, they don't understand. I am literally camping on a tent on the streets. Like I couldn't understand that. So I'll tell people like, I understand that it might be hard to hear from me now. I've been sober over 8 years and, for the most part, I think I'm like kind of a normal functioning member of society now.
You are. You are.
So I tell them like, Google the Dr. Phil episode and, it might make it a little more real and believable to hear the things I'm telling you, because I think it's one thing to hear somebody who looks put together, say these things and, even though they're emotional things and they're, I try to be honest and vulnerable about those things. I think that there is a lot of power in seeing, I was a different person.
Absolutely.
Almost unrecognizable a decade ago.
Huge power. And, it like, even though I have seen some of this, when I watched the show and then I had seen another podcast that you were on and I'm like, oh, such a beautiful story. And the fact that you now have 2 children and 1 on the way. And now what happened, you went after treatment, you finished up school and now you're a social worker. So what brought you through that journey?
So I went to treatment. Dr. Phil sent me to treatment, which I was very grateful for. They took great care of me. They really set me up, and I wound up staying down here. I'm like still very connected to that treatment center.
And you went to Hanley Center.
Yes, I went to Hanley Center. I'm still very connected with them. I was just recently on their podcast. Yes. And when I got out, I stayed down here, and at first I started working in treatment. I stayed super connected to that alumni program and a lot of the connections that they had set me up with down here. I got super involved in the 12-step program and service work. And then at about, 3 years sober maybe, I got my driver's license back and decided like, okay, maybe it's time to start thinking about going back to school. And, I basically just had some AP classes and a semester under my belt. You know, and when I went, I went and finished my associates at Palm Beach State. And then I did 2 degrees at FAU. So I did my bachelor's and my master's in social work. Finished that up a couple years ago.
Wow.
Yeah,
Congratulations.
Thank you. I actually just took my LCSW exam and I passed, and I'm so excited.
Oh, that is awesome.
Yeah.
So where are you working now?
So I work for the state right now. I'm a forensic social worker and parent advocate. I work for the Office of Regional Counsel.
Okay.
Kind of like the public defender. Our primary representation, though, is parents' independency proceedings. And the cool,
How awesome. My son is a public defender in Palm Beach County. So.
Okay. So I'm sure we have some crossover then.
Wow.
So they originally scouted me and I had presented at, you know, a big part of this is, you know, I continue to be really outspoken about my experience. I've always been honest about it. And I was linked up to Dr. Howard from Hanley, who was at the time a professor at FAU. It's a big driving factor in why I decided to go to FAU for my degree. I was involved in a research study with her and then co-presented with her on a couple different panels and presentations. And one of them was to the parents' attorneys at the Office of Regional Counsel. Mm-hmm. And they actually created a position for me based solely on my lived experience at the time to work with parents who've had their children removed by DCF.
Wow. Do you think that is one of the reasons that you're still alive and to this day, to be able to do something so powerful?
So I certainly am of the belief that, like, you know, finding a purpose was something that, like, I didn't realize it until I got sober, I think, but like that lost feeling that I kind of talked about, I just always felt like, you know, what is life about? Like, I remember having those feelings, like being like 6 years old, which is like super bummer. But like feeling like, you know, what am I supposed to do here? And finding that purpose, you know, when getting sober and helping others and being of service was huge for me. And it's a huge motivating factor, you know, like my road to getting my daughter back. And that was not easy. And it was met with a lot of challenge.
Tell the audience, I'm curious, what was that journey for you to get your daughter back? She was taken away at birth?
Pretty much at birth. I mean, it was a lot. And, you know, I think it was a big factor in why I'm so passionate. Obviously to help mothers who are struggling with substance use, but, you know, more so once that intersectionality of the dependency system comes into play, you know, because the truth is I did actually go into treatment pretty quickly after that case opened, and still at over a year sober, found that the court thought it was in the best interest to, you know, change my goal to adoption and not reunify me. I felt like I had nobody advocating for me. You know, the caregiver didn't want to return her. The guardian ad litem was very aligned with the caregiver. My public defender was overworked and I'm sure overwhelmed. And, you know, what I do now, working with the attorneys, you know, it's a lot easier for if a client has some concerns and some things are happening and they can't get a hold of their attorney. I mean, I can walk down to their office and I could just stand there until they listen to me.
It's such great, beautiful work that you're doing. You must be like so every day thinking, what next? To be able to bring a child, reunification of a mother and their child.
I mean, I love my job. One of my friends is hosting a baby shower for me tomorrow. And, you know, she had all these like trivia questions for me. And one of them, you know, was that like something surprising is like, if I won the lottery, I would not stop doing that job. I love my work. I love my job. You know, getting my license as a clinical social worker and doing therapy and it's like that's some cool stuff on the side. that is a blessing and I love it, but like I am very passionate about my full-time job and what I do.
Because you lived it. And, you know, for you to be able to help others gain their children back at a faster pace. Speaking of that, I want to bring up the Case Flores program that Hanley Center just opened up a few months ago. Pregnant mothers who are with substance abuse disorder and getting them treatment, and the babies delivering at St. Mary's and then returning with the mother to Hanley Center for a period of time. I'm sure that you're thrilled over something like that.
Absolutely. And, you know, I was so excited when I found out that was in the works. And then when I found out that Dr. Howard was going to play a huge role in it, I mean, I love everybody at Hanley. I love her very much. So when I found out she was joining the Hanley team, that was super exciting. And I certainly wouldn't trade my experience for anything, but it absolutely would have been a huge blessing to have Adley, my daughter, in treatment with me. You know, she didn't come back to me until she was almost 2 years old.
Did you get to see her periodically?
I did. I would see her on Zoom when I was in treatment. I remember the first time she came down for an in-person visit. It was probably when she was like 8 or 10 months old. I remember that. And, you know, like I said, everybody at Hanley met her too. I was, you know, still, I think, in their outpatient program at that point. So I would like bring her everywhere. Everyone got to meet her. My daughter is more popular in this community than I am. I mean, I am not exaggerating.
How old is she now?
She's 8. We went to the Hanley barbecue this weekend. And, like, as soon as we walked in the door, she saw people, and she's like, okay, bye, I'm going to hang out with my friends.
That is wonderful. And they also have a children's program at Hanley. So I just have to plug that, too, for children 7 to 12 that have parents or other significant others with alcoholism and or drug addiction, either active or in recovery, because children... well, let me ask you, how did your daughter handle all of this? And what does she think now? What does she know?
So, you know, this is a question I get asked a lot, and it's something I'm still navigating. And, you know, obviously the answer and the way that my daughter understands it and the information I present to her has changed. You know, I got sober when my daughter was 3 months old. So she's never seen me in active addiction, and I've never hidden from her that fact either. You know, I'm very transparent with her that, you know, do you remember when you used to live with Nana? And she thinks that's like hilarious. I was like, you remember you used to live in New Jersey, you lived with Nana, do you remember that? There was, you know, and she is also aware, like, you know, that mom was down here in Florida, mom was sick, mom was trying to get well. She asked questions about dad. You know, my husband adopted Adley several years back now. So, you know, her dad, my husband, is, you know, the only dad that she's ever known. And I don't, you know, lie to her about that either.
How old was she when you married?
When we got married, she was 2 or 3. However, she met him when she came down here when she was almost 2. So that is the only dad she's ever known. And I also don't lie to her and tell her, you know, like, you know, mom and dad, she asked, where was dad when you were down here? And I tell her, dad was living with roommates and we hadn't met yet, you know? So she talks about, you know, like, I met dad when I was 2, and which is the truth. She met dad when she was 2, you know, and he was also kind of thrown into that role of being a step parent almost immediately when I was reunified, you know, and started bringing her around him. And I try to continue to explain it to her the best that I can. You know, sometimes she jokes, she asks about things that, like, we're allergic to, and then, you know, tell her, like, mom and dad are allergic to alcohol. Like, and, like, she also understands that, like, you know, we go to meetings, we meet with people who need help, we do service work, you know, and we try to tell her, like, that's, like, the most important thing we do is the work that we do to help others. And you know, I think, you know, whatever her understanding of addiction is probably pretty limited at this point. I've tried to always...
But it's not hidden.
It's not hidden. I'm a therapist, but I am not a therapist that works with children, nor do I have any desire to. So I take a lot of guidance from the people around me who do work with children. And I let her guide and steer those conversations. And when she asks me questions, I answer them honestly.
Okay, great.
Yeah.
So I'm actually called Nana too. So Sharon, we have something in common. Sharon, we're both Nanas, and your son, how old is he?
Jim just turned 4 last month.
8, 4, and also you have 4 years between all of your children.
Yes. And we get comfortable enough to fool ourselves into thinking that we can handle another one.
Until all of a sudden the baby comes like, whoa.
Yeah. Yeah, and our son he's wild.
Are you taking any time off from work?
I am taking like 6 months off of work, which everybody is
nice.
really upset about. I'm a little like, what do I do? Because at least when I had Jim, I was still in school, and it was during COVID, so everything had gone remote.
Sure.
So when I was on maternity leave, I was still able to take some classes. And now I'm done. I'm like, what do I even do with all this time off? I'm very excited to have some like real just time off to spend with the new baby and get the kids settled.
That's actually, 6 months is a really great time for you to be able to spend that time and acclimate all the children to each other.
Yeah.
As well. So Sharon, I know that you are probably over the moon, but tell me, since all of this occurred, I see the smile on your face. So since the darkest days of your life till now, how have you been able to take care of yourself?
Well, I feel satisfied in caring for myself because I helped Nikki.
And so during the time that you weren't able to help Nikki, were you focused? Yeah, you weren't focused on self-care probably, right?
Oh, God, no.
Because you were in crisis. That was a crisis period of time.
I was a mess. It was, and also it was a secret.
Yeah, wow.
I was a mess and only I knew it.
Yeah.
Because I didn't tell anyone else. And that was a mistake.
What can you tell mothers, fathers, families, other families? What can you tell them that maybe some of the lessons that you've learned?
What I learned is that don't feel like you're going to be shamed. Don't feel ashamed. As a parent, don't feel ashamed. Because you will be so surprised if you confide in maybe, your family, your friends, or even a stranger or Al-Anon, whatever.
Sure.
It's next door. It's the woman behind the ShopRite cash register. It could be the cop that pulled me over. It could be his son in addiction. Everyone is touched by it.
Sure.
And I felt so alone.
Yeah.
Then I found out I was so not alone. Why did I seclude myself?
Well, I think that's the natural thing for parents to do. And then when you can tell your story, like all of a sudden everybody has a story to tell.
Yeah,
and
exactly.
That speaks to authenticity and vulnerability and showing and being able to come on the podcast and any other stories that you can share with families and people that there is hope and you're resilient and just keep the love. And sometimes it is hard to keep the love. I know that I've listened to someone else, and it goes from being very angry to loving the person so much, but feeling really lost,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. And I mean, the love never changes, of course, as you know, that doesn't change. But like you said, you got anger mixed in there and everything. But I don't know if Nikki well, she is going to think maybe that I didn't think this because of a comment I had made to her when she was deep in the depths of it, like after she had gotten like kicked out of school and stuff. And but I always was proud of her. Even when I was mad at her, it's weird to say.
Yeah, I understand.
It just never went away though. Like I knew the person I was proud of, she's there. That's her. Mm-hmm. Yeah, she's doing something terrible now. But
that's not her, right?
That's right. That's right. That was that disease. Okay, so I always, don't ask me how I knew, but I always knew she would meet her potential. I did. And she probably didn't.
Right. Right.
But I did. And like my other daughter, like, that's just like a whole big complicated relationship. But anyway, she say things to me like you love your daughter that's addicted to heroin more than me. Like she would
because she got more attention than your other daughter. Yeah.
Yeah. Because there was a attention being given, you know, and like that. It's not the case that I love anyone more. I think that she just couldn't understand how could I love her.
Sure. And I think that when someone else is getting the attention for things that the other siblings may see, well, you know, what is wrong with them and why are they getting this attention because of it? Of course, they're going to be hurt.
Yeah.
And having an understanding that person needs more attention or help now. And then things will even out and there will be some more love and attention to the other siblings. And that's part of the healing process of the family. It is a family system that collapses and then is able to be rebuilt, I think.
Yeah.
And it takes time. It's a process.
Yeah. I mean, I tell that to people, you know, all the time. Gosh, I celebrated 8 years of sobriety back in December. And I tell people all the time, all of the relationships in my life are still very complicated and they're still changing. And, you know, that's okay. Like, I need to do better on those things. We all need to, and it still changes. And, like, thank God for that, because the relationships that I have in my life are beautiful and they're fantastic. And I've never had relationships like I had, you know, with my friends and my family and my children and all of those things. But we're all humans and we all have our own stuff and we all are going through our own life cycle changes and like that stuff takes time and then more things are going to come up and then that's going to take time too. And it's, you know, I'm just very grateful that I'm able to experience those things and able to be present in whatever capacity I can be for those people, whether I'm the one struggling or they are.
Yeah, for sure. So I want to end this. Is there any other messages either one of you may have to the audience?
I'll let Nana go first.
Oh, boy.
Nana.
A message. Well, there's a lot of messages. I mean, gosh, I don't feel like I did anything right. You know, like there's with tough love and like, I don't know what's right. What was right for us was what worked.
Yeah. I think that's the message that you can give.
That is the message, I guess.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
And last thing I just want to say, and Nikki knows this, I am so proud of you. So proud of her. She is my biggest success story of my life.
Absolutely. And I'm honored to be sitting in the same studio with her right now.
You know,
hey, I'm honored to be her mother. I mean,
of course.
what a better person than I'll ever be.
I think what Nana said before, what my mom mentioned before too, is one of the things that I always try to really close and reiterate with, but when I have the opportunity to speak. You know, for the longest time, I was so ashamed of everything. And it's obviously it's a commonality, not just that I experience, but the people who love an addict experience is that shame and not wanting to be honest and vulnerable about those things. And like the irony is, like, I didn't experience any freedom until I finally just got honest about those things.
Right.
And the crazy thing is, the things that I was like, okay, like, I'll be honest about this, but I'm certainly not going to be honest about that. When I just got honest about those things, you know, those are the things that help people the most. Those are the things that I have people approach me and they're like, yeah, me too. And I've never heard somebody share honestly about that. And like, but I want you to know that, like, I struggled with that too. And I think that there's, you know, something to be said about being honest and being vulnerable. And that's, you know, where we make these like meaningful connections. And like, for me, that was like the first ray of hope I experienced when I got sober, was seeing somebody be completely honest and completely vulnerable, and just like having that raw human connection to like the tech in my treatment center who was speaking in the group that I was in. And I was like, oh my gosh, like, this person gets it. Mm-hmm. Maybe like this could work for me too.
Wow. Well, you really persisted, you know, going so long without having your daughter. That in itself is really it's hard to break the cycle of addiction to begin with, but then not having that and keep going to court and being able to potentially lose her permanently is such fear that congratulations for what you've accomplished and being able to help others to do the same thing. And I want to say to the audience, I was so excited to do this on Valentine's Day. And Feinberg Consulting, Dr. Phil did this intervention, and Feinberg Consulting can do an intervention for your family. Anyone who actually needs help and the story resonates with them or something similar, because there isn't any story that's the same. We're all humans individually. And please contact us up at 248-538-5425, or feinbergcare.com is our website. And thank you so much for both of you being here. And Sharon, when you come to Florida to meet this new baby, I would love to get together as nanas to nanas.
I'll be there on the 25th.
Okay. All right. Awesome. Well, thank you both. I appreciate it.
Oh, thank you and happy birthday.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for joining the conversation today. If you are seeking help for yourself or a loved one, please reach out to our Feinberg Consulting team at 248-538-5425. That's 248-538-5425, and check out our website at feinbergcare.com. I'm grateful for our guests and all who have joined us today. Make sure you follow us on Apple, Spotify, or anywhere you listen to podcasts.